Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to start working on the appearance or the design or the styling, or you could call it the user experience or user interface of our app. Up until now we've been building out features, but it's very plain looking and it's not very user friendly. So for example, how could we have maybe 4 images sit side by side per row? And how could we turn this into a nice looking header? And how could we have a subtle looking footer? So on and so forth. Now, when it comes to adding a bit of styling or design to our page, we need to use something called CSS. However, there are a billion different ways that you could apply CSS to your project. In my opinion, most of them are not going to play very nicely with AI. In my opinion, managing traditional old school CSS requires a bit of human touch. However, and this is an opinion of mine, but if we use Tailwind CSS, which is a CSS utility first framework, then it can play incredibly well with AI. I have had amazing luck using Tailwind in my prompt-based AI projects. Now you could test your luck and try to have AI via a prompt install and integrate Tailwind for you. I've tried that before. It seems to mess up too frequently with the initial installation. It messes up too frequently for me to feel good recommending that. Maybe in another year it will be a super safe bet, but for now, let's install Tailwind manually into our project. It'll only take maybe less than 5 minutes, and then from that point forward, for the remainder of this course, we can have the AI write all of our styling and design needs for us. So in other words, about 5 minutes of technical instructions to then be right back cruising down the freeway of having prompts build our app for us. So how in the world can we install Tailwind? If you visit the official website, tailwindcss.com, and then we'll click on Docs in the top header. And then if it's not already the first page it takes you to, we're looking for the installation page. And then it's going to give you several different options. You don't need to do all of them, you just need to pick one of them. We are interested in the installation for this, Tailwind CLI. Perfect, so it'll give you instructions. Now, before we can even perform this very first step that it's asking us to perform, we do need to make sure that your computer has something called Node.js installed on it. If you've ever worked through development or programming or coding tutorials before, on the current computer you're on, there's a decent chance that you have Node, but you might want to make sure that you have the newest version installed anyways. To check to see if you already have Node or not, back in VS Code, press Ctrl-J on Windows or Command-J on Mac, and that will open up your terminal area, and then just type in Node and then a space, -- version. If you see a version number, yours doesn't need to match mine, but if you see one, that means you have Node. Perfect. If you see unknown command, right, or command not found or something like that, that means you need to install Node. So from the official website, it's nodejs.org. You can click on download. If you're a power user, you can use these options, but if you just scroll down a little bit, this, where it says or get a pre-built Node.js 4, this is a very simple, easy way to get Node installed on your computer. So in my case, I would just click this button. Once you get that downloaded, then just open it up and all of the default options are great. So just click next, next, next. Once you have it installed, then you can come back to VS Code. Remember, it's Command or Control-J to open up your terminal area. And then once you've successfully installed Node, just try this command again, node space -- version. If you're still not seeing a version number, you might need to restart your computer and then try this again. But from this point forward in the lesson, I'll assume that everyone has Node installed on their computer. Perfect, so now that we have Node, we can get back to the actual task at hand, which is installing Tailwind into our current project. So again, back on the installation on the Tailwind website, we were interested in Tailwind CLI. The very first step just gives us a command that we copy and paste and run in our terminal. So you can click this icon or you can just select and copy the text, either way. But then with that in your clipboard, this little command, back in VS Code, and again, this is the folder or the project that we've been working on. What's nice is your terminal will be automatically pointing towards this directory, and then just paste in the command, and then down here in your terminal, with that in, pasted, press enter. Great, you'll know that it finished if now in your left-hand sidebar you see files named package and package-lock.json. You should also see a node modules folder. Let's go back and find step number 2 on the Tailwind website. Okay, so it's saying that we need to add this in a CSS file. No problem. Let's do this. Back in our project folder in VS Code, let's create a folder. So you can right-click anywhere in this empty space in this file area, like for example right about here. Click New Folder. You could name it anything you want, but just so you and I are on the same page, let's name it Media. And then right-click on that new media folder and click New File and name it input.css. Perfect. Now in that brand new empty file, you guessed it, just take that little bit of code from step number 2, copy that into your clipboard, paste it in. Be sure to save this file, so Command or Control S. Let's find step number 3 on the Tailwind instructions. Okay, so step number 3, it's telling you to run this in your command line, but I have a better idea. I don't want you to have to remember to type this in every time you start working on your project each morning, so I have a better idea for us. You can go ahead and copy it into your clipboard for now so it's ready and waiting for you, and just leave it in your clipboard, but let me show you what we're going to do. In your sidebar, open up package.json, not package lock, just package.json. And in this file, we could, right above this dependencies area, spell something out ourselves manually, but let's just write a prompt. There's no way your prompt is going to mess this up, I would have to assume. Let's say, for the AI prompt, say in package.json, please add a scripts area, if one doesn't already exist, and create a dev script or command I can run that has this as its value, and then just paste in your clipboard. Let's go ahead and press enter, and let me show you what that's going to do for us. My agent is saying that it wants to edit a sensitive file. Package.json is a sensitive file, but that's okay. I'll just click allow and see what it does. Perfect, so it created a scripts area. It created a task or script called dev, and then there's that value that we pasted in. Perfect, so I'll just click keep. Hopefully your package.json looks similar to mine now. But now in this command that we copied and pasted in, we just want to make a quick change. So we see npx tailwind, but then we see this area where it says .src input. Let's change that to point towards our media folder. So instead of /src, just get rid of src and replace it with media. Leave it as input.css, and then so this is the file that it's going to read, and then it's going to create a new file for us. And again, instead of src, just change that also to media. Perfect. So go ahead and save this file, Control or Command S, and now let me show you how to use it. So you can close it, you can close all your files, and then in the command line, now when you start working for the day, you don't have to remember that big long command. All you have to do is say npm run dev. That's it, just npm run dev. Go ahead and press enter. Cool. Now it's going to keep running forever, watching us in the background. It's going to watch for changes to our files and then automatically create the appropriate CSS in output.css for us. To tell it to stop running down in your command line, you press Control C, like if you're done working, and then in the morning when you want to start working again, it's just npm run dev. It's that simple. To hide your command line, you can leave it running and then hide your command line with Control or Command J. Now we can pretend that it's not even running, only now we can give our agent instructions on how to style our page. So first of all though, before we give it instructions on how to design our page, let's make sure that we're including output.css onto our web page. So let's give it a bit of instructions. Let's say in index.php, in the head section of my page, please include my style sheet, which lives at media/output.css. Let's go ahead and press enter and see if that works for us. You'll know that it works because currently our web page is using like a Times New Roman type font and there's spacing around everything. But let's see once this finishes. Looks like mine finished, and now if I refresh my app, perfect. So it's using a different font, and notice all of the spacing And the bulleted list, all of that is gone, and now we just see raw content. However, this means that Tailwind is working. So now we can start to give our agent instructions, and it will use Tailwind perfectly. Really quick though, just a tip for you, on that new line of code that it added, that's adding our style sheet, it's towards the top of your file. If you look for the head section, you can press Command or Control F and search for output.css if you can't find it. But at the start of this path that points towards that file, right before the M in media, if you add a /, that will look at the root of your domain. So that way, even if you're nested several layers deep in the URL structure, it can always find this file. So I can save, I can refresh, perfect. Now, let's give our agent its first bit of instructions on how to style this page. In the next lesson, we can worry about the header and footer, but in this lesson, let's just worry about the main content area with your critters. Let's tell it to no longer have the description. Let's just have like a grid of 4 images, right? And so 1, 2, 3, 4 that all sit on a row, and have them be centered, in the middle portion of the horizontal real estate. So here's what I would say. In index.php, in the list of a user's critters, please remove the text that is the description of the critter. So only leave the image of the critter, and use Tailwind CSS to have 4 critters per row. Give each critter image a subtle but nice looking border and margin, etc. ... Make sure the overall, let's say call it like my critters area, is centered on the page with a max width, etc. ... Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. Now again, in order for this to work, the AI is going to run all of your code, but you do need to make sure that your Tailwind task is running in your command line. Again, that's just npm run dev, but you can see mine's just running in the background. Very cool. Looks like my agent finished, so let's just refresh and see what that gave us. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can simulate on like a normal sized screen, but this is looking really nice. So you can see I only have 2, but they're going to be centered in like this portion of the screen. They can all fit on one row. There's a bit of margin and styling going on. And this is great because now at this point, prompt by prompt, you can tell the agent exactly how you want things to look. And it's going to write very consistent professional CSS using those Tailwind utility classes. I have had much better luck with this approach as opposed to writing traditional long-form CSS. Because the way that Tailwind works, if we just go ahead and accept or keep all those changes, Tailwind just applies these utility classes to each element. And this sort of atomic, what you see is what you get per element basis, this plays very nicely with the way that AI reads your code. Perfect. That is going to bring this lesson to a close. We now have Tailwind up and running. We've added our first bit of intentional styling to the page. And from here, let's just keep working on the user experience. So we want a header, a footer. You want to be able to click on a critter to go to the detail screen for that critter where you can archive, favorite, or remix a critter, so on and so forth. Let's keep things rolling. I'll see you soon. Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to pick up right where we left off. So we're working on the design of our home page. In this lesson, let's worry about setting up a header and a footer. But really quick, before we get to that, I want to mention a quick detail. If you right-click on any critter and choose Open Image in New Tab, you see this URL structure. If you just remove the file name, but leave your domain and then critter images and press enter, we do not want the general public to see a listing of every single file in that folder. So here's what I would do. Just write a really quick prompt. Say, please create an index.php file inside of my critter-images folder. And my goal is to prevent the public from seeing a directory listing of that folder. So have the new PHP file simply redirect users back to the home page. And then you could say like parentheses, quotes, /. Let's go ahead and press enter. Looks like it's done. Let's test that out. So now if I try to visit Critter Images, if I refresh, it just kicks me back to the home page. Perfect. But all of our images are still available. Beautiful. Now let's work on setting up a header for our page. So here's the prompt that I would write. Let's say, in index.php, please remove the welcome user text and also remove the, let's see, it's called create new critter and log out links. Create new critter and log out links. Instead, have a top header area that is full width and has a light gray background, and on the left has a link to our homepage, just / that says our app, and then on the right of the header then on the right side of the header have the user's username, comma, a create critter link, and a log out link. Only show that content on the right if the user is logged in. If the user is not logged in, have the right side of the header display sign up and log in links. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. And now it's going to style things for us. I forgot to tell my agent to use Tailwind CSS, so let's see how it did without that bit of instructions. Right away I noticed the file turned to red, so it looks like there's a syntax error. If I refresh, yep, you guessed it. Let me just tell the agent really quick. And just a quick tip, it'll tell you which line the error is on. So 137, yours will be different than mine, but I just like to give the agent as much context. I'll say there is a PHP syntax error and the browser is telling me it's on line 137. Please double check and fix this. Okay, looks like it fixed its problem. Let's refresh. Very nice, that's exactly what I had in mind. Now let's test it if you're logged out. So this makes sense because I'm logged in, right? It has my username. I can click create critter. I can click log out. If I log out, beautiful. Now the header just has sign up and log in. This is looking good. Now let's set up sort of a universal footer. Let me go ahead and log back in. So log in. Eventually we'll need to add styling to this login page, but just go ahead and get logged back in. And now let's worry about sort of a universal footer down about here. So here's the prompt that I would write. Let me go ahead and keep those changes that it already set up for us. Here's the prompt. In index.php, please create a footer area at the bottom of the page. Have it use the typical, copyright symbol and the current year, and then say, our app, and then say all rights reserved. Use Tailwind to have a subtle gray border at the top of the footer. Use a decent amount of margin and vertical spacing, and have the footer text and content be centered horizontally. Finally, please remove and then I just want to remove this text that says happy and then the day. So please remove the text that says happy and then outputs the day of the week. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. It looks like mine finished. And again, just to remind you, in order for you to see these new styling changes, you do need to have the npm run dev task running. So again, Control C to stop it, but to run it, it's just npm run dev. Remember, it's Control or Command J to show your terminal. Press enter, and then that just runs in the background until you tell it to stop. You can hide your terminal. If I refresh, perfect. Our footer is looking nice. At this point, for the remainder of this lesson, here's what I want to focus on. Currently, if I use the create critter link to visit that page, this page has zero styling going on. we would want this page to use the exact same header and footer and styling as the home page. Now, this is where it gets a bit opinionated, and there's a billion different ways to keep your code organized. But I think perhaps the simplest way, I'm not saying the best way, but just the simplest way, would be to create reusable header and footer files that we can sort of leverage in multiple pages. In other words, I don't want to duplicate this header code across every single page that needs it. So let's have the goal of having our create critter page use this same layout and styling in header and footer. Here's what I would do. Let's write a prompt and let's say, I want my create critter.php page to use the same CSS file and header and footer as my index.php page. Please create a lib for library folder. I mean, you could name it anything. Some people might name this like includes or library, but let's just say lib for short. And so we want a folder in our project, and it can contain files that are reusable. So we'll say, please create a library or lib folder in my project and create header.php and footer.php files in that new folder, and extract the header and footer HTML from index.php and place them in the appropriate new lib files, and then leverage those header and footer files in both index.php and create critter.php. Let's not forget, let's say finally, also create a head.php file in the lib folder that uses the head section from index.php. This way, the head portion of the HTML that loads our CSS file and sets meta tags and title can be used across pages as well. You can set things up so that the current title of the page is set through a variable, and then the reusable head.php file uses that variable for the document title. But this way, the head.php file can load our CSS file across any page that uses it. Okay, let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. It looks like my agent finished, and if I look in the new library or lib folder, this is looking good. These are the three files I wanted: footer, header, and head.php. Let me refresh my home page. Okay, so good news and bad news. The bad news is that there are two headers. We'll just need to tell it to no longer keep the original code because it's leveraging that reusable file. But if I click on create critter, great, it's using the header and footer. Let's go ahead and fix that duplicate header on the home page. So I'll just say perfect. However, index.php now has two headers. Please remove the original header HTML in index.php and only keep the code coming from header.php. Let's go ahead and press enter, see if that fixes it. Looks like it's done. If I refresh the home page, it did not fix it. Interesting. What is my agent saying here? This is definitely the random nature of AI. I'm almost positive you won't be running into this issue. My agent is saying that file editing is currently disabled. Very odd, right? Because throughout this entire course, that's all we've been doing is editing our existing files. So I'll need to research off camera what in the world is going on and how to fix this. Sometimes you just have to laugh with AI. So off camera, I just wrote this prompt. How do I enable file editing? You've been editing files this entire time perfectly. And the agent said, you're absolutely right. I can edit files. Let me fix the duplicate header issue. Let's refresh and see if it fixed it. Beautiful. Who knows, right? Hopefully your AI agent did not experience that same bug. But now, this is great because now we have a reusable header file, a reusable footer file, and they're being used across these two different pages, our home page and our create critter page. Now, in our next lesson, let's worry about setting up the individual screen for a critter. So you should be able, from your home page, to click on one of your critter images and have it take you to a new page with just that one critter, where you can begin to favorite, archive, or remix that critter. Let's keep things rolling, and I'll see you then.